Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia, and before I bring Greg in, I want to tell you this is a special pop-up episode. A lot of you did not know we were going to be live on Thursday at 9:15 a.m., Thursday, October 12th. But we wanted to carve out 45 minutes to talk about the Chicago Bears and then preview the Vikings-Bears game this upcoming Sunday. So without further ado, let me bring in the man of the hour. His name is Greg Gabriel. GTF, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing well. The victory aura is still in me. I still feel happy about that win. How about yourself? Did you go back and look at tape and start nitpicking things?
No, and in fact, well, before we even get into that, I got to do a shout out to my daughter, Kelsey. It's her birthday. I don't know if she listens to the show, but if she does, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kelsey.
So anyway, I just finished writing about an hour ago for Windy City, and basically the importance of the next two games for the Bears. Okay, you had that 14-game streak, and I kind of clarified that because to most of this team, it wasn't a 14-game losing streak. It was a 4-game losing streak. Half of that team wasn't even here last year.
Right.
So, but to us, to ownership, to the front office, to the coaches, it's been 14 games. But you had a win and a good win on the road in Washington last week. And now it's real important that you continue those positive vibes. Because if you go out and especially because these next two games are at home against Minnesota and then the Raiders, if you go out and lose, even lose one of them, all those negative narratives are going to come right back.
Right.
And the only way you're going to wash them down the drain is to continue to win football games. And one of the comparisons I used was, Detroit last year. Detroit lost 6 of their first 7 games a year ago. And much like the Chicago fans, the fans were up in arms. They wanted to fire the coach. They wanted to get rid of the quarterback. And, the front office and the ownership was patient. They turned the thing around. They won 8 out of their last 10. And now they're arguably one of the better teams in the NFC. So, I said, there's no reason that the Bears can't do that. It's staying healthy, learning how to play together. And let's take the defense first. Defense, except for Jones, the front seven's all new. They never played together. And then because of injuries, a lot of them didn't play together in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
You had one new player in the secondary, but reality is that for most of the first 5 games, a lot of those guys in the secondary were hurt, and you were playing with backups. 2 rookies, corners, a second-year safety. And it was crazy. A guy that you signed off the street was playing the slot corner, Stroman, and he actually played a pretty good game last week.
Yeah.
He's got experience in the league. So it's hard. I don't think people understand how hard it is to bring all these people together and then to play with some cohesiveness. Mm-hmm. And, it's starting to come together. It looks like Jalen and Eddie Jackson will be able to play this week. We'll know more probably tomorrow. But if that's the case, this can be the first time really since about the opening game that the defense is playing together as a whole, as a group. And then when you go to the offense, the offense played pretty good. The last 2 weeks, it averaged 34 points a game, put up 68 points. Justin Fields played the best football of his career. Only 1 interception, 8 touchdowns. But there is a little caveat in that. Your running back situation is going to be totally new this week. You're going to have the whole running back core for this game is brand new. Mm-hmm. And that, Donta Foreman hasn't played in the last 3 or 4 weeks. He's been inactive. And then you brought in Darrington Evans, who knows the offense. He was with the team last year. Brought him in on Tuesday, and they'll probably have to bring up Robert Burns from the practice squad, who had a pretty good preseason. So your 3 running backs will probably be 3 totally different people, unless Roschon clears concussion protocol. And there's only been 1 or 2 players this year that have played in the game the week after they suffered a concussion. Now, the extra 3 days may help, being it was a Thursday night game. But as of right now, he's still in concussion protocol. So that doesn't look good for him for this week. Probably next week he'll be able to play. So that's going to make a difference. But running back is the easiest position to take and plug and play guys. And especially, Foreman's been here all year. Evans was here all last year. So it's not like they're new people.
Right.
They're just new people playing, so to speak. And Foreman's a quality back. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if he has 75, 85 yards rushing on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the knock on him is that he's not a prolific pass catcher. And I think that's mostly because he hasn't just been given a chance.
Yeah, right. It's opportunities.
Justin Fields was asked, what he needs to improve on as the season goes on, and this was his response.
Me personally, I think I have to do better in the second half with, staying locked in and, keeping all the guys locked in and, putting up the same amount of points as we do in the first half. So I think that's our next step as an offense is just, keeping our foot on the gas and not letting up and, keep putting up points. So.
Greg, do you think that's more because Justin and the players aren't performing as well in the second half, or do you think that has to do with the play calling? Luke Getsy perhaps getting a little more conservative in these past 2 games.
Well, I think there has been some conservatism, but not as much last week. Mm-hmm. There was the week before. Last week, I think, I tweeted out during the game, they got to keep their foot on the gas here. Don't get conservative. And actually, they had the long play to Moore in the fourth quarter that actually, ended the game. That long was a 54-yard touchdown pass. They got to continue that. But the really, to me, the most important thing with the offense is finding a way to get Darnell Mooney more involved. And that'll take pressure off of Moore. And so if you get him more involved, I think he was targeted just 4 times last week, maybe 5. I don't think he had a catch, but you got to get him the ball. We know what he can do, but that'll help Moore a lot. And if Mooney comes up with some big plays, then that takes away the ability for teams to have to concentrate on Moore and try to double Moore. Because you got another guy that's actually faster and capable of big plays. And we know he can do it because we've seen him do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Fields was asked about that too. Now that, the connection with DJ is running full speed, what about DJ Moore? This was his response.
Yeah, we always want to do that. But, everybody knows, everybody on the team knows the role. Everybody on the team knows that, DJ's our number 1 receiver. So, and wherever the chips fall, they fall. But, he's the number 1 receiver. And, Moon's going to get the ball, Cole's going to get the ball. And, of course, we always want to get those guys involved, Just spread the love, so, yeah.
Just a deep on DJ, though, do you think that will lead to more opportunities for them?
It's got to. If they put 2 guys on DJ, then one-on-one on either Cole and Mooney. So, yeah.
Just as you said, Greg. It is interesting, though, that he has proclaimed, he's the number one guy. Everybody on the team knows it. And I remember when Ryan Poles got the job, he said that they had done some studying about what a young quarterback needs most. And the answer that they discovered with their analysis was a reliable receiver that you can go to repeatedly on third down. And that's what apparently he's gotten. His connection with DJ Moore is so strong.
Yeah, it's been good. But on top of that, Fields is making the throws. He's making accurate throws. He's getting the ball out of his hand. And Moore's coming up with some big catches. Like that touchdown pass that put away the game, that was like 2 inches away from being a pick six going the other way. That was a hell of a play by Moore.
Yes, it was. Indeed. I got one more from Justin Fields. We know that this Vikings team, the defensive coordinator is now Brian Flores, and we know he loves to blitz. In fact, they lead the NFL in blitzing. And so great quarterbacks pick apart blitzes, but apparently this year, even the average quarterbacks have been picking apart the Vikings blitzes. And this was Justin Fields being asked about adjustments that the Vikings might make because of the connection with DJ Moore.
I mean, they're probably going to make some adjustments, but I don't see Minnesota speaking. I don't see them changing who they are because of the week that we had the week before. But I do expect them to cloud a little bit. We know they're a high pressure team, so definitely got to get ready for that. But I mean, yeah, I don't think a team's going to fully change their identity of who they are. The way they play the game. Their base coverage and stuff like that. Just because we're having success, they're probably gonna go in the game trusting their guys that their guys can get the job done. So, yeah.
My question to you, Greg, is how confident are you that this third-year quarterback Justin Fields is going to handle these exotic blitzes that Flores is going to throw at him and this offensive line?
Well, I'm going to back up a little bit first.
Okay,
I'm not a big Flores fan. I think he's a figment of the media's imagination.
Interesting.
Okay, he was in New England. That was Bill Belichick's defense, and his Miami team stunk. When he was the head coach, and part of the problem, and I know a coach that interviewed to go down there and interviewed for a position, and other coaches on the staff said, don't take it. This guy's nuts. So, there was problems between him and the general manager and, who knows what the whole story was, but he's got a big name, but I don't think he's as good as a lot of people make him out to be. So, and I'm not that worried about this week. I mean, Flus was talking about it yesterday in his presser. He says, yeah, we know these things are coming, and that's what we're working on today and tomorrow, meaning yesterday and today, that, you're preparing the team to have, some sort of counter activity to those blitzes and be prepared. Hey, Minnesota's won one game. It's not like, Brian Flores is setting the world on fire. Their defense isn't stopping people.
Yeah, exactly. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and then on top of that, they've lost their best weapon on offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, the key to this game, I mean, obviously the offense has got to score some points, but the key for the defense, and I like Cousins. Cousins is a very smart, savvy quarterback. He gets the ball out of his hands. He's tough to sack, but he has a history. You punch him in the mouth a couple times early, it's all over.
Yeah.
And so you've got to get to him early. And then that can really dictate how that game's going to turn out.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you what your thoughts on Kirk Cousins are, because he is one of the most polarizing players in the National Football League, has been for years. When he signed that big contract with the Vikings, so many people were upset. They felt that he wasn't deserving. He's never won anything, but he clearly does have great stats. He almost reminds me a bit of when Stafford was with the Detroit Lions. That the stats were way up there, but when it came down to crunch time, he would make mistakes, particularly when being blitzed. Now, he has gotten better, at least statistically, against the blitz the last year or two, but when he first joined the Vikings, he would panic and throw the ball to anyone wearing purple, even if it was a fan in the stands. What are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
Well, it's like I just said. You've got to get to him early. You got to get him frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And again, now his go-to guy isn't there. So, and they've got a very talented rookie in Addison, who I loved coming out, but he's still a rookie. And without, having Jefferson there, that makes defensing the Minnesota Vikings that much easier. Now, I'm not going to say this is going to be an easy win, because it sure as hell isn't, because this team hasn't proved it can win games yet till last week. So they got to go out and they got to play as well as, if not better, than they did. And I hope it's an advantage playing at home, but if they don't do something real early in the game, you know how that home crowd can get. So they've got to come out of the box fast and do something both offensively and defensively to get the crowd on their side and to make a lot of noise.
Let's talk defense. Homer Kutz has said Gervon Dexter is coming, and he certainly had a really nice game against Washington with that interior pass rush. The Bears love to try to collapse the pocket, and Dexter did it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times that I saw on tape. What is your evaluation so far of Gervon Dexter, and do you think that sometime by the last quarter of the season, we could be seeing the Gervon Dexter, the guy that we imagining?
Well, I think you're starting to see it now, but they're always going to. It's not going to be like he's going to be an every down player. They're going to rotate. That's what Flus wants to do. That's what most of the teams in the league do now. Keep your guys fresh, but he's capable of playing either of the 2 defensive tackle positions. He's very athletic. He's big. He's strong. He's learning how to play the game. I'm not going to call him bad habits. He ought to break the habits of how he was taught to play his 3 years in Florida, which was more of a read and react 2-gap scheme instead of an attacking defensive lineman. And so, when you do that for 3 years, that becomes almost second nature. So now you got to learn how to play at a more aggressive type game, and that'll help them. And it's starting to show now. And hey, he's a rookie. It's going to be up and down. Pickens, I think, started out real quick. He's kind of leveled off a little bit the last 2 weeks, which is typical for a rookie. But what you want to see is when they hit that level off point, then they start to climb the stairs again. And that, hopefully he can do that, because, I think reality is he's actually a better athlete than Dexter. He's not as big as Dexter, but he's really an explosive athlete.
Speaking of young players, these young defensive backs, although Marcus Stroman is a 5-year veteran, but he and the younger defensive backs have played so well against a very talented Washington wide receiver core. Now that it appears we're going to start to get back Kyler Gordon and Eddie Jackson, some of the injured players, Jalen Johnson, back to the starting lineup. It could be as early as Sunday that we'll see some or all of those guys back. Who do you think is going to suffer in terms of fewer snaps? And who would you like to see get more additional or continue to get some snaps because of their play?
Well, Stroman's not going to see if Gordon is ready to go, and Flus talked about that yesterday. He said physically he's ready to go, but he's, his hands wrapped up. So it's what can he do in live football with that hand? And so they were, and Wednesday is the more physical day in practice than Thursday is. So they probably got a good idea yesterday what he can and can't do. And that'll determine how much play time he actually gets. And then at the corner position, if Jalen's ready to go coming off a hamstring, that's going to take away snaps from Smith, Terrell Smith, which is fine. Because, the last thing you want is two rookies starting at the corner position. But that's what they've done. Now, I like Terrell Smith. I think he's a talented guy. Personally, I like him better than Stevenson because I think he's a smarter player. He doesn't make the mistakes that's Stevenson makes. Very talented guy, but he makes dumb mistakes. Mistakes of aggression, late hits, things, the interference calls where I think Smith avoids that. He's just his football intelligence is a shade better right now as a rookie. And he's actually bigger and faster, or about the same speed, but he's I like big, long corners, and that's what he is. But it doesn't matter what I like. It's what the coaching staff likes. And Stevenson is in his own right, he's a really good player. He's going through the growing pains of a rookie. But in the long run, that's going to pay off because you learn by you learn by the mistakes that you make in games. You just hope that you don't make the same mistakes twice.
Exactly. Do you like the idea of possibly moving Kyler Gordon back to the outside and having Strowman or Terrell Smith in the slot?
Well, I don't think that's going to happen, Aldo, and I'll tell you why. Coaching staff loves him in the slot. That's why they drafted him. Yeah. And you know why? He's tough enough to I was doing a player yesterday, college player from Alabama, for that group that I'm doing reports for. And they have a guy that plays strictly the slot corner. And that position is part corner, part safety, part linebacker. It's you need a very unique skill set. Yeah. And Gordon has that skill set. So, and these guys are playing 85 to 90% of the snaps in the game anyway. So I cannot see that happening. I see them keeping him inside because he can do. Now, the only thing that could change that, but I don't think they'd put him back outside, is that if his hand is still hindered and he can't do the things they want him to do as far as the physical part of the game this week. Maybe he's still a week away, but they're not going to tell us that. You're going to find that out on Sunday.
I just want to let everyone know that we are going to have a shorter episode than normal. And so get your questions in now and we'll start tackling some of these. Have you heard anything regarding trade rumors with the Chicago Bears? The trade deadline is coming October 31st. Josh Brown has said that he had heard, maybe these guys that are on the final years of their contract, Mooney and Jalen Johnson, possibly being moved to contenders or other teams. Have you heard anything?
No, and that's media talk. And here's the reality of the trade deadline. Until the last 2 years, and granted, the last 2 years, there's been more activity than probably the 15 years previous put together. Before that, the trade deadline in NFL football was a day on the calendar. It was a non-event day. You might see one trade. Like in baseball, hockey, and baseball, in a couple days leading up to the trade deadline and on the day of the trade deadline, there might be 75, 80 transactions take place. Well, and even last year, football had a lot, but I still don't think there was 10. But the Bears made 2 of them. A few days before they trade Rokon, then on the day of the trade deadline, they trade for Claypool. But most teams stick with what they have. And they don't like giving up assets unless they're really in a bind and they have to.
Yeah, interesting. Greg, the term competitive rebuild has become popular now. It's almost like an NFL marketing scheme, and it's basically general managers saying we're going to, control the salary cap a lot better and gut the roster, but still be competitive. So J2K says, what's your opinion on competitive rebuild? Is it fool's gold, or can a team maintain success and still get younger and better?
It's kind of a hard question to answer. When you're rebuilding, you're saying I'm going young. So, and young means inexperience. And inexperience a lot of times can mean losses. Because guys, now it doesn't mean you don't have quality talent, but it's just how ready are they to play? But they need to play. And so you go, like last year, the Rams started to gut that team, and they, were out of the playoffs. They're playing a little better this year, but they're still not what they were a few years ago. And look at New England. I mean, they're horrendous. If there's the worst team in football, it might be them. But they're going through it. And they don't, it's not that you want to. And it's just so odd to see a guy like Bill Belichick going through that, because he had 20 straight years of success. And now it's like his team is horrible.
Interesting. Mr. Inglewood, we were talking about Dexter and Pickens, and he asked you to compare them to Big Tommy Harris and Tank Johnson.
Well, both Tank and Tommy were better athletes than Pickens and Dexter. Tommy Harris was a sub 4.7 40 guy. Okay, he was a 4.68, 6'2.5". He was coming out, he's about 285. He played at around 290, and he was chiseled. I mean, there was no body fat on that guy. And very explosive, very, very good athlete, great motor. Tank, a little bit bigger, about the same height, but probably 305. He ran in the low 4.7s, where if you look at Dexter and Pickens, they were like 4.88 and 4.89. Pickens about the same size as Tank, hair taller than Tank, about the same weight. But those guys were rare athletes for interior defensive linemen, and it's just tough to find guys like that. But you compare, say, Gervon Dexter to what the hell is the guy's name? The 3 technique for the Colts, who they got in a trade a few years ago from
Buckner.
Stanford. Yeah. Buckner's a 5.05 or a 5.1 guy coming out. But he's got a very quick first step. He's got great body control, change of direction, very explosive. And so he can be as effective as a guy like a Tommy Harris type player. So it's not just the numbers that counts. It's, how you play. Dexter had to learn how to, and is still going through the process of playing in this type of scheme and playing in a more of an attack type player. He's playing in a 2-gap system in college. Now he's playing in a 1-gap system. You got to penetrate, you got to disrupt, where his job in college was, in most cases playing head up on an offensive lineman, 2-gapping him, not giving ground, and being able to occupy blockers, but he didn't necessarily have to penetrate to disrupt the run game. And so he's doing entirely different things. Now you can take Jalen Carter. The defense they play at Georgia is more similar to the defense they play here, where their interior guys attack.
Mm-hmm.
And they got these big monster interior guys, but they're also athletic. And, Jalen Carter athletically is really a freak for a guy that size, and he's so strong. His problem's from here up.
Yeah.
So far he's been great, but how long is that going to continue? Is that going to be a rookie year thing, and then he's going to revert back? We don't know the answer to that, and we won't until you see how he turns out as a player.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's some a lawsuit or two against them, so he's got to stay out of trouble because he needs that cash to come in for lawyers and so forth.
Oh yeah, there's no question, and he went to the right team. People still want to complain the Bears should have taken him. Well, he wasn't going to be the same player here.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have a locker room here like you have in Philadelphia with the veteran presence in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
That takes time to develop. And so, I don't care what he does in Philly. It would not have happened here given the conditions of what they have in the locker room. I'm not downplaying the people in the locker room here. It's that, they haven't won. And, you got a multi-year All-Pro at one of the defensive tackles in Fletcher Cox. You've got another multi-year All-Pro in Kelsey at center. They're all over the locker room in Philadelphia. You don't have that here yet. And when you get that, then you can draft a guy like a Jalen Carter. And that's what happened with Tank. Tank had red flags all over the place. And, for most of the time, he was good. But he still hung out with some bad people. And then he got into he didn't get in an incident, but he was there when his friend got killed. And, it became very disruptive.
All right, we've got questions in the queue here from David, Tim, J2K, and a couple from Doug. I'll get one of Doug's out right now. This is a great question. Do you recommend, Greg, anyone for this defensive analyst position? For those people who don't know, Matt Eberflus on Monday said that the team was looking for a senior defensive analyst who would help the team prepare for upcoming opponents by watching tape. This person could be working remotely. They'd be sent the tape, and they'd help game plan for upcoming opponents with defensive suggestions. Have any names popped into your mind?
There's been a couple. One was at the game last week, albeit in a working capacity for the NFL Network. That's Leslie Frazier, former Bear. And, could I be 100% wrong on this? Absolutely. But he's a longtime coordinator in the league. He's a former Bear, played in a similar type scheme. It's not working right now. Technically, he's under contract for the Bills, but he's not getting paid by the Bills. So, they're not going to say you can't do it. But what he does, even though it's a similar defense, and he's coached a very similar defense throughout his career, he's a little bit more aggressive than Flus is. So just his mentality can add to the thought process. And also by, breaking down the other team. And the other guy is, it's kind of an obvious one, is Lovey. And Lovey's still getting paid for at least 2 more years. So, I never saw a guy win the lottery as many times as Lovey Smith. I mean, that guy has hit it right so many times and a great guy. But would he want to do that? I don't know the answer. Especially being that he was head coach here.
Right.
Would he want to come back in a lesser capacity?
Yeah.
Does he have to kind of like bite the bullet and swallow his pride a little bit? In my opinion, no, because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
It's been 10 years, maybe 11, but it's, he knows Flus. He's a big proponent of that scheme. And can he break down another opponent? Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a great question. One name that I did some research on Eberflus's career to see, who he's worked with. And one name that popped out was Eric Mangini. What are your thoughts about Mangini? Is he as crazy as people say? Because he does have a really good football mind, both on offense and defense. And he was a defensive coordinator. I think it was for the Niners for a couple of years.
He's a coordinator. He's been a head coach.
Yeah.
I'm not a Mangini fan. I can't say I know him. I've met him once or twice. I had a good friend that worked for him in Cleveland, and Mangini drove him nuts. I mean, almost led him to a nervous breakdown. And, so I would say no. He's more of a Parcells disciple, type thing, and which is not the same scheme. So I would say no to that. But I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe he wants something from that's different.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about Mike Zimmer, former Vikings head coach? It's Mike. Right?
That would be, that could be a good possibility. First of all, you got to say this: does the guy want to do it?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so, and to me, part of that, the key to what Flus said on Monday was, well, he doesn't necessarily have to be here, but when you got the guy here, in college football, when you're an analyst, you're only allowed to have so many coach players on the field by NCAA rule. Or the pros don't have that rule. You can have 35 coaches if you want, and all of them could coach a player, on the field. So you could hire a guy as an analyst, and that doesn't mean he isn't going to coach his ass off during practice.
Right.
So is it better to have him here? Yes. But it really gets down to what exactly is the job description. When you got the guy here, when you got when you're talking to him and you want him to break down a defense, you got to do it on a Zoom call. It's just not as good as if they're all sitting in the defensive room.
Mm-hmm. One other thing, Doug said, what about a younger guy, somebody, who has a fresh mind? I think that the only issue with that is usually those guys have jobs already somewhere. And secondly, you want to find somebody for that position that Matt Eberflus knows and trusts, because you're coming in the middle of the season. And so you need to build a rapport. And if you're bringing in a fresh young mind, which I always like to see, but building a rapport with that person in the middle of the season could be kind of tough. Would you agree with that, Greg?
Yeah, I can. And I personally think, just reading between the lines of what he's been saying, that is going to be a more experienced type guy and not a young guy. I mean, to me, the obvious name at first was Marinelli, but I don't think Rod wants to do it. Physically, Rod could do it from home and do an excellent job, but to come here, Rod's got problems with his legs.
Right.
And so the problem is getting around and stuff. And Could he do it? Sit in the golf cart and all that? Yeah. And he's the guy really that taught Flus the scheme. But when Flus was directly asked about Marinelli, he chuckled a little bit and he says he's happy in retirement in Las Vegas. So that, to me, kind of squashed it. But at the same time, it could have been, yeah, but I'm trying. We just don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We don't. All right, let's move on to another question here. This one from J2K. Greg, do you still think we need a superstar 3-tech in this defense, or do we have enough at the moment? And J2K, like me, loves the kid out of Illinois, Jerzon Newton. He's going to be a fabulous 3-tech. But your thoughts on the superstar 3-tech? Do we need one on this team, or should we maybe wait and see if one of the youngsters on the roster will develop into one?
Well, that's why they drafted him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you got to wait. You got to see how this plays out. I think Jones has got a 3-year contract. He's in year 2. He flashes, but he hasn't set the world on fire.
Yeah.
But his flashes are good. But Dexter is slowly but surely catching up.
Mm-hmm.
And like you saw the flashes last week against Washington. I almost said the Redskins. And if that can continue, then you've got your guy here. And then you got a guy sitting on the practice squad that they really like, who's very explosive, but he played Division II level football last year in college at Kennesaw State, and that's Bell.
Yeah.
So to me, and I'm not coming off of this until they go out and sign some veterans and free agent to make me come off of it. I think their highest priority next draft is, and you got a lot of local people, saying, well, it's going to be Caleb Williams and the receiver from Ohio State. And that's not your problem. If you look at the way that Poles is drafted and built this team, he takes key positions early. Mm-hmm. And what has he not taken yet? He hasn't taken an edge yet. And last year, or this past April, I thought he wanted to. It just didn't fall. And we've talked about that before. God bless you.
Thank you.
So, if they could be in position now, it depends where they're picking. I can't see Poles taking a wide receiver in the top 5. To me, it just doesn't fit his mindset. Between 6 and 10, yes, maybe, but not between 1 and 5. And who the hell knows where these picks are going to be? The Bears win these next 2 games, things change. Their pick isn't going to be in that top 5. Carolina's will be. Will it be number 1? Who the hell knows? And then, you got the big question is, the last 2 weeks, Justin has played a lot better. He's played like the guy we thought the Bears were drafting.
Mm-hmm.
But that's got to continue. That's got to continue. Yeah. Is he going to have a bad game? Yeah. But generally, the arrow's got to be pointing up, and you're real happy with him at the end of the year. Because if you are, then you're not going to say, well, I'm going to start all over again and draft, Caleb Williams or Drake May from North Carolina. And Drake May, by the way, pretty damn good.
Yes, he is.
I think Drake May is every bit as good as Trevor Lawrence. Doesn't have the supporting cast as Trevor Lawrence had at Clemson, but that guy is a pretty damn good quarterback. So, long way off. We got half of January, February, March, and April to talk about it. I'm not even going to think about it now, only because, it's.
We're in the season. Let's enjoy it.
It's clickbait talk, and I see some of the stuff people put out, and I just go, "Why are you even talking about it?" and it's like, and number one, you don't even know what you're talking about. So
there's a lot of that going on out there.
Oh yeah.
All right, 2 more questions. This first one is from Tim Willis, and by the way, if you don't know, Tim and Jeff Willis are twin brothers, and the reason I mentioned that, well, more on that next week. That's called the tease in the business, Greg. But Tim asked, Greg, do you think this offensive explosion is sustainable, or do you think it's going to drop off? It's an interesting question, Greg, because the last 2 defenses that the Bears have faced have given up a lot of points to previous opponents. Even Washington, with that great pass rush, has given up a lot of points, and Denver, of course, has a historically bad defense. So as the team goes on and plays defenses that have better cores, at least statistically, do you think that the Bears are going to be able to sustain this offensive explosion?
I can answer that with another question. Why not? It's a game of momentum and confidence. And if the offense has had success the last 2 weeks. They're coming together as a team, and just like the defense has a lot of new parts, the offense does too. I mean, you got a new right tackle. Every week you've had a different damn offensive line, because of injuries. Just about. DJ Moore's new to the system. Mooney's coming off an injury. Komet is he's a given. He's been here for a while. The other tight end is, not new to the system, new to the team. So, I mean, it's everybody learning to play together, and that's happening. Defenses are going to try to take away some of this passing game, but in doing that, they're going to be potentially giving up the big play to Justin to run again. So it can be, they can't have it both ways. Indeed. What they've been doing early is everybody's been putting a spy on him. So it makes it very difficult for him to run. And, it's been effective. But he's counteracted it because basically what they've done is we're going to make you throw the ball because we don't think you can beat us throwing the ball. Well, now he's throwing the ball, and he's throwing the ball very effectively.
He is.
So now if it's a chess game. So now now we got to adjust our defenses to take away DJ Moore, take away Komet. Okay, well, that opens up Mooney. And it opens up the run game for Fields. And that's the advantage of having an athletic quarterback like him.
Indeed. All right, 2 more questions. David says, Greg and Aldo, have you noticed every time Ryan Post trades a player, that player ends up going to a team that is a contender? Do you think that's by accident or on purpose?
Oh, I don't know. It's just that's who made the deal. I'm going to say, I'm glad you brought that one up because with, Claypool struggled here learning the system. Okay, now he's going to Miami. And so the first thing is, he's going to probably struggle there learning that system. That's wrong answer. It's the same frickin' system. It's an offshoot of the Shanahan McVay system, McShanahan obviously being the originator. And so a lot of the stuff is the same. A lot of the terminology is the same. So it's not like he's walking into a brand new thing that's totally opposite. Like last year, he was in a totally opposite system when he came here from Pittsburgh. And now he's going to a place that's very similar. He's going to be ready to play for Miami a lot sooner than he's ready to play here.
Yeah, and Doug says Claypool said recently that he was frustrated by losing in an interview yesterday. And to him and all the other players who have said that, then you're mentally weak. You should be focused on winning and what you have to do to win, and instead of letting that frustration overtake you and miss blocks on the field, miss assignments on the field. We don't want you. If you get that easily frustrated by a losing streak, get the hell out of town is what I say.
Well, you're in the wrong game. I mean, that's what it gets down to, because there's in any pro sport, there's ups and downs. Yeah, I've been on losing teams. I've played on losing teams and, been part of losing teams and been a part of, world championship teams and winning teams as a player. And, there is a big difference. Losing sucks. Trust me. But in my way of thinking, when you start losing, it just makes you work that much harder.
That's the way it should be.
Because you don't want that, you don't like that taste in your mouth.
Indeed. All right, last question. Tim says, with his injury history, do you think Ryan Poles is out there already looking for Eddie Jackson's replacement? Maybe drafting a safety for this defense. He's got 1 year left on his contract, if I remember correctly.
I might be 2, but you may be right.
Okay. So, what do you think? Is Eddie Jackson's replacement coming soon?
Yeah, I have no idea on that one. I mean, number one, you want to see him stay healthy. Mm-hmm. You want to see him get better. It gets down to this, and I've said this several times. You got to give back to the team what they're paying you. So if they're paying you $10 million a year, you got to give them $10 million worth of production. Mm-hmm. Okay. And if they're not equal, then it's time to move on. And they're going to see that. It's going to be very plain for them to see if they're saying, wait a minute, this guy's costing us X amount of dollars. We're not getting that production out of him. It's time to go out and get another player. Replace him. And then you move on. Excuse me.
Jeff says everyone loves Eddie Jackson, but he struggles to stay on the field. He's not getting any younger. You have to at least be thinking about a long-term replacement. Yeah, I agree with Jeff on every point there. And I don't think Elijah Hicks is going to be that guy. What do you think about Elijah Hicks?
I haven't seen enough to know.
Yeah, I saw
they drafted 2 safeties each in the last 2 years. The guy this year, Williamson's on the practice squad. They're late round guys, but generally speaking, unless the guy's really special, he doesn't go high in the draft. Mm-hmm. Those are middle late round guys, and a lot of them turn out to be good. Mm-hmm. So, could his replacement be here? Yeah. Is he here? I don't know. It's way too early to tell, and it's way too early to say that he's out the door. But that's part of managing a team. You always got to be thinking of that because of, the money's involved.
Right. And
you're going to have young players that are coming up that are due for extensions, and you're going to have to pay them. The biggest thing coming up now is that, why this year is so important for Justin Fields. It's like you got to pay him next spring or pick up a 5th-year option, or you're going to draft a guy. And how he plays the next 11 weeks will determine that. If he keeps playing like he did the last 2 weeks, he's going to get a long-term contract. There's no question. And I'll tell you, you think about it. there's very few people that can make some of the throws he makes.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those throws are unreal. It's just he doesn't do it with consistency.
Right.
And that's what we got to see. And 2 weeks isn't a big enough sample. You got to see 8 weeks of it.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Final question for you, Greg, is what are you anticipating Bears Vikings? Do you think the Bears have a shot at getting this 2-game winning streak, or do you think the Vikings have played really well this season, just had some bad breaks?
I think Vikings suck. I've said that to you a number of times.
That's right. You have.
No, I don't think they're a good football team. I think that the Bears are getting them right at the right time. I think losing Jefferson is going to take a little bit of the wind out of their sail.
Mm-hmm.
From the offensive standpoint, it's going to put some pressure on those other receivers, but it's going to make the secondary's job a little bit easier. I think the guy they're going to try to go to, and he's pretty good in his own, in his own right, is Hawkinson, tight end. So that means Jaquan Brisker's got to be up to the task. But it's I'm not the secondary. The front four for Minnesota can be pretty good. I don't think their secondary is worth a damn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the weather's going to be. I think the preliminary forecast is showers in the morning and
that's what I've
off
heard.
and on showers during the day. So who knows? It'll probably be a close game. And until you start putting wins back to back, everything's going to be a nail biter. I mean, they won by 20 last week, but 10 minutes left in the game was still a nail biter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Bears pull it out. But I think, the crowd got to be on their side. They can't start this booing shit when they have a bad drive. They just, you got to be positive, got to back the team, and, help them create some momentum.
I agree with you. It's really important that the Bears fans start to behave like that 12th man. And I know it's been frustrating. You go all the way out to downtown Chicago and they put a terrible performance. But the more we support this team at this juncture, I think the better the results we'll get. At the end of the game, if they get blown out, then boo all you want. But don't. If you're booing after a bad drive in the first, second, or third quarter, get out. Stop that.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. Now, last week in the first half, they didn't punt and scored on every drive. I'll take that, but that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen every game, indeed. It's going to be interesting. The big thing is to see how this offensive line and Justin Fields handles these different blitzes that Brian Flores is going to throw at him. All right, Greg, I will let you go. Thank you very much for doing this special Thursday episode. We will be back. Normally, we're back on Mondays, the day after the game, but we've got some commitments on Monday, so we're going to be back here on Tuesday to talk about the Bears' victory against the Vikings. Greg, you're the absolute best. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, buddy. Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
See you later.